What we're about to look at is a pretty interesting video. I saw a little bit of it already, and I thought, yeah, what this person is doing by going out in the community and asking these specific type of questions, I think is very, very good. Let's go.
If you could go back in time knowing what you know today and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would you say?
People view you as not an ongoing person anymore.
It's sad and lonely. There's no cure and there's no hope.
It's a big mistake.
That's something that I only discovered 40 years into my life.
5 years ago, I wasn't like this at all.
It's hard, bloody hard today. You'll make yourself miserable.
You want the truth?
In this video, I'll be in Montreal, Canada, asking strangers in their 80s, some of the oldest and wisest people in the world, what advice they would give to their younger self. Let's get into it.
I'm familiar with that place.
How old are you?
88.
What does it feel like to be 88?
Well, I just came back from my cardiologist. I'm in perfect shape physically, but I lost my wife a couple of years ago, so mentally I'm still working on it.
How was that like, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it's sad and lonely. I eat most of my meals alone, but I'm doing okay. As long as I'm in good physical shape for another year, that'll be fine. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get there.
Yeah. How long?
Man, if that's the first person he interviewed, and that's the first thing he hears, you know, you lost a loved one, definitely gonna set your mood, set your mood for the day. Like, okay, you know what? This is gonna hit different, especially if I'm interviewing people of a certain generation.
How long were you guys together for?
63 years. It was a perfect relationship, but, you know, my wife contacted ALS. She lived for a year after the diagnosis, but there's no cure and there's no hope, and she had no quality of life. But she opted for medical assistance in dying and went very quietly and with dignity.
What was your favorite memory of her?
Oh, everything. 3 sons and 7 wonderful grandkids. We did a lot of cruising. We were in Vietnam, we were in the Baltics. We had a good life.
What did she mean to you?
Everything.
How old are you?
70.
What does it feel like to be 70?
Oh, man. It's been a rough year. My wife died at the end of March, and my mother died 2 weeks ago. Otherwise, I'm doing good.
How long were you and your wife together?
35 years. It was a great combination. We did real well. So I kind of lost my mother, who I was with for 70 years. Mm-hmm. And I lost my wife, with whom I was with for 35 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of adjustments.
Can you define the word love?
Wishing the best for the other person.
What is important to you guys at this point in life?
I think for me, now I lost my husband this year. He was 97. And it's very hard to live alone after you've lived with someone for 60 years. Really a different kind of living. And everything starts to go. Your back told me I've got bones broken in my back. I'm like, broken? So that's why I'm with the walker. Like 5 years ago, I wasn't like this at all. Everything goes. My eyesight is going. But I'm alive. I'm here, and I see my grandchildren, and I see my kids.
All right, I just want to cut in here. It's the first video that we filmed, I think, where an overwhelming number of the interviewees have dealt with loss recently. These videos, it's one thing to listen to the advice you hear, but it's also another thing to really think about what these people are saying. Like, we are going to be going through very similar emotions and feelings that they are going through right now. I just invite you to take the time to text somebody that you love, not text them, honestly.
That's a very good perspective to say that. I will one day obviously be at that age where our friends, our family members, my generation will soon be passing away. And so, gotta definitely give thanks and be grateful. And I think from what he was about to say, so make certain calls that you need to call. Yes, sir.
Text them. Take time to call somebody, to go make an appointment with somebody that you love. Tell them that you love them. Tell them you appreciate them. And you never know when the last time will be. You know, life is really short. And all these interviews have been showing me this recently. So I know I'm going to do that after I finish filming this today. So how does the world look at you differently?
It's just by the age. And if you're 88, you probably have dementia. You have very few interests left in life. People view you as not an active, ongoing person anymore. It's a person who is saying goodbye, you could say.
But you don't feel that way, right?
I don't feel that way.
That's a very strong point. Society kind of starts to put the elderly to the side, where they're not, looked at as importance as younger folk, because industries and money is all put into the younger people. So that's definitely something that we need to personally, the elderly people in our life, make sure that we're there for them and that they feel important.
Not yet, anyways.
Yeah. How do you feel about the way people think about you?
I accept it because I know it's the truth. That's what they think. I must have thought the same thing when I was younger.
What have you done in your life to feel this good at this point?
A lot of exercise. I'm in the gym 3-4 times a week, bicycling, walking. Like even now, I'm going for lunch. I'm up to 10,000 steps. Yeah.
Amazing.
My grandfather died when he was about 97, and he remained intellectually active to the very last day of his life. And I'm very busy. I'm writing and doing voiceovers. I'm very, very busy. My days are full. If you know how to channel your creativity and you let others benefit from it, you've defeated age.
I'm also a fine artist, and nobody can tell you when to stop that. So you're in control. It's not like you have to retire from your job. And that, I think, is very, very satisfying in some ways, that you can just keep producing, keep making.
What's the truth about life that you could teach to young people?
If you live in the past, you're depressed. If you live in the future, you're anxious. But if you live in the present, you're at peace and focused on the present.
That everything is impermanent. So let's enjoy this moment 100%. Everything has a beginning, everything has an end. When we are young, we think that it's never going to end. It's a big mistake.
Enjoy the moment.
Exactly. And also not to be so full of yourself and so proud in the sense of empty pride, what you can do with your body or what your achievements. As you get older, you see that many of those things get weaker, like your body is not as strong, so you cannot do as much. But when you are young, sometimes you look at old people and you say, why don't they move faster, Why don't they understand,
Right.
I guess when you are confronted with somebody like that, and then you feel your impatience growing, so that's the moment to practice deep breathing and mindfulness. That's the way to combat stress.
If you could go back in time knowing what you know today and give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would you?
That woman sounded like a God-fearing person, a God-fearing woman, just the type of energy she gives off.
You say?
I say to myself, my husband would come alive again. I'd never argue with him again.
I would want to encourage that guy to be more able and courageous to act on his gut feeling. That's something that I only discovered 20, 30, 40 years into my life. What is this gut feeling that people talk about? It was as if it was a sound that was beyond my ability to hear. I was brought up in an environment and a mindset where you did what you were told, you obeyed. That resulted me in getting into a relationship that I went too far in it because I don't want to disappoint her, don't want to say no. And, my gut feeling was saying, this doesn't feel good. I wish I'd had more courage in myself, more confidence in my gut feeling.
What's the lesson or takeaway that you have from that experience?
It's one of balance, not being a total robot and not being a total, inward-looking person either.
If you could go back in time knowing what you know today and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would you say to her?
No.
No.
Nothing. Everything was perfect the way it was because it took me to this moment.
Looking back, what do you wish young people knew earlier in life?
I think you...
That question for sure for me, I would definitely give myself some advice. Definitely. Work on yourself, find who you are as a person, who you are in God. Understand what God is really trying to show us through the Bible. Really and truly the power and the dominion. It's not about chasing women. That a lot of us men, we grew up thinking that we should be focusing on building up our character.
You know exactly what you should be doing when you're at this point in your life. You can't say what you should have known and been better at. You can only do what you can do. You'll make yourself miserable thinking that you're not keeping up to what you should be.
What's one thing that when you were younger you put a lot of importance on, and as you got older you realized wasn't actually that important?
You want the truth? Chasing girls. And then I met my wife, and we've been married for 45 years. I saw the futility of that. It's a lot nicer to be in a very loving couple than to be chasing women all the time. Don't be afraid to fall in love. Yeah, no, it's true. Some people are. Some people are very they're afraid of becoming dependent or getting hurt or whatever, but you shouldn't.
You got to risk it.
What's your recipe for living a good life?
Do the right thing was the number one thing. That was my wife's credo. Keep your chin up, don't be judgmental, and give the other person the benefit of the doubt. Kindness, fairness, honesty. She had it all. She had it all. I mean, I could go on and on. She had it all.
A lot of people my age feel very lost in life. They feel like it's very hard to navigate their life, to figure out what they want to do. What would be your advice to those people? How did they figure their life out or piece it together?
Well, I'm 70 and I feel very much like you do. I mean, apart from wanting to have a really good relationship, which I succeeded after a number of failures, I never really had any major goal. Never really had that kind of a priori list. It's sort of more like, well, what does she like? But I learned a bunch of things.
Mm-hmm. Do you regret that, not having a specific big goal?
At times, I felt I should have had some goals, that were more explicit, because then you can, put your efforts at achieving it. Sort of think like, well, maybe if I had them, I might have actually achieved them. Instead, I had quite a few, let's say, minor successes. Yeah, which it is what it is.
My advice to young people: smoke a lot.
Jordan Peterson, very famous psychologist, he definitely says for young people, especially young men, go for something specifically, go for one thing, go put your all into that one thing, whether it's in whatever industry. You go for that one thing, and even if you don't get that one thing, but because you were going so hard for that one big thing, even though you might not have reached that big thing that you're going for, but because that journey that it takes to get there, you still end up in a place of life where you're reaching for the moon, but you still end up in the stars, right? That type of mind, that type of thought process where you go for something big in life, and even if you didn't obtain it, you still end up doing something great, or the doors that it opens up for you in the end up becoming something worthwhile. I've listened to one of his podcasts talking about that.
Well, not a lot. Not a lot, people. Don't
Especially
smoke a lot.
before going to bed at night, I have either an edible or a joint of indica.
Every night?
Every night. And it relaxes me. Well, you should. The smell in the whole bloody house. You don't really get stoned, I must say. Well, maybe you do.
You wouldn't know, yeah.
We have to work with what we have and start from there.
How do we figure out what we need?
What costs us the most to do, that's what we need the most.
What costs us? Like energy-wise? The effort. Is that also what scares us too?
Yes, scared, bored with, or no, I don't want to bother with that. Well, maybe you have to look into it.
Don't focus on all the noise that's around you. If there's nothing you could do about the noise around you, find something positive that you could do and affect other people. My expression is, I aspire to inspire.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, knowing what you know today, what would you say to him?
Develop more personal friendships. Men don't usually have a lot of friends. My wife had hundreds. At her funeral, there were 150 people and 200 condolences on the website of the funeral home. She was really loved, and I know I can do better.
What is the value of community?
The value is very important. The influence is very important. If it's fraught with people who had, their own issues that got projected onto you or prevented you from seeing other opportunities, you're starting at a deficit. My wife came from a very supportive, loving family, very, very social. And I could see the, dramatic differences in how we approach life. And I think she ended up choosing some good people going forward. Me included, I guess.
Invest heavily in your relationships. Relationships are more important than anything else. Having relationships that are good or someone very close to you is worth everything, more important than anything else. Then from there you go on. But you have to have that. Don't cheat on it and don't run away from it.
Most people are not doing that. It's a very individualistic society right now that we live in, at least for young people.
For themselves. Everyone's anxious about being forgotten or not get where they want to get. It's hard. It's bloody hard today. I'm glad I'm not that young struggling. I couldn't do it. I mean that I couldn't do it.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Listen, our mission is not just to inspire.
The relationship one, for sure, especially when it comes to business. Everything is about dealing with people, right? No matter what you do. Go to the store, go to school, go to work. everything's about people. So relationships is definitely up there. And with that said, my advice for myself and young people growing up, younger than myself, definitely that last one she said about relationships. That one was really big. And a Bible verse that kind of stuck in my mind after I've read it a couple months ago, and I wrote it down. It comes from Ecclesiastes 12:13. The end of the matter is this. So the end of all things. If there's anything that we need to know, and all that's been heard, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So what's the most important duty of a man? Is to fear God and keep his commandments. So when you fear God, you love God. When you fear God, you love him. You love his commandments. You love his ways. You love what he told you to do. All those things. So that verse kind of encompasses a lot of things. So if there's one thing I would tell somebody, fear God and keep his commandments, for that is the whole duty of man. So that was a very good video. I think he has a couple of videos. Go check it out. Very good. I think even that could be watched in schools. That could be watched universities, down to high school, college, universities, professors, and everything should be showing those things. It makes people to think about how we're living and how we're moving through this life. And so, as always, guys, keep your faith in motion.